You're listening to the PT Pintcast, where smart people in healthcare come to make noise. Here's your host, Jimmy McKay.
All right, as always, want to say thanks to Empower EMR. If your clinic is stuck in an EMR that slows you down, you do realize that that's not death and tax is the only thing you've really got to count on. You can leave your EMR. You can do it. You're allowed. I checked. Empower gives you speed, clean workflows, and features PTs actually asked for. It's almost as if they're in all the Facebook groups listening to your employees anonymously, because now you can post on Facebook anonymously, complain about the stuff at their job. Here's the thing. You're allowed to fix that because they're asking for things like better notes. Yeah, if you've ever treated a patient, you're pissed off about that. You want better notes, faster documentation, smooth operations, all wrapped in customer support that doesn't ghost you. Because here's the thing, when something goes wrong, and it will, you just want someone to be able to fix it. Even if you don't fix it quick, I just want to know you are working on it. And that's what happens there. So upgrade your clinic's brain. This is the thing you're probably playing with more than your phone if you're working with Empower EMR. Find them online. They'll walk you through it nice and slow on what the future could look like at empoweremr.com. One more time for the people in the back, empoweremr.com. It's weird doing the live read while you're sitting here, Sharif.
Yeah, I'm right here. It's
Sharif
great to hear it.
Empower EMR. I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Hearing it live is fun.
3-part series. We had you on before. So if you are listening to this is like Voltron. This is the second in 3. All right. So don't skip the first part. Previously, we talked about, I think I titled the episode like the silent tax on PT clinics. I wanted you to understand, you, the person listening, who's thinking of launched, trying to grow, whatever. Your EMR could be costing you, and I'm not talking about what you have to pay to use it. It could be paying annoyance tax on your clinicians. That's not fair. It could be losing you time, and we know time equals money. You could be losing staff because of this decision or a non-decision. So that's part 1. This is part 2 of 3. And this one I wanted to focus on the big, hairy, I won't even call it scary. I'll call it the big, hairy question mark. Here it is. I'm sure you've never heard this phrase, right? AI in physical therapy. It's everywhere. Go to LinkedIn. You're going to trip over it everywhere. But I wanted to come to you because you've been doing this for 21 years. You've seen things come and go. I think in your last episode was a great thing. You started when EMRs were a covered wagon. You started when it was Oregon Trail. That was advanced. Oregon Trail was advanced. So you've seen things come and go. Things are cyclical. You can see the patterns. You can see the signal in the noise. So today, what's real? What's hype? What will actually change in your practice in the next 3 months, 3 years, knowing that you don't have a crystal ball, but you do have a memory, and you've seen the only way to predict, or at best try to predict the future is to understand the path. So when PT owners, first of all, when they hear AI in healthcare, what do you see them misunderstanding the most right now when you're doing deep dives with current or potential clinics coming on board with Empower?
Yeah, no, it's good to be back. I would have to say, I think the goal is to keep you from dying from dysentery on the Oregon Trail. That was always like the thing, right? It's like you've died from dysentery, and now it's like 2026. So you've died from AI, from hearing too much about AI. You've been AI to death. Because, you're not just hearing about it on LinkedIn and PT, but like everything on the news is about AI, every product, even products that make no sense have AI in them. Like you go to the grocery store and popcorn has AI in it. You're like, this doesn't make any sense. How does this have AI in it? And what can it do for me? But there was a meme I saw on X like a year ago, and it was like CEOs adding AI to their product, and it was a guy making a sandwich, and he was just pouring sauce all over it. The sauce with and he just kept going, and then he put it in a styrofoam container, and then covered the styrofoam container in the sauce, and then did this 3 more times. So it's overwhelming, I think. And so what's the number one thing? I think to start, you ask some tough questions like what's next in 3 months and 3 years. I think the number one thing right now is probably some of the claims are maybe a little bit beyond the reality of the actual technology itself. I mean, AI is incredible, right? It is. You can go and you can talk to it and ask it a question, and it can synthesize an answer. it's really incredible. And then obviously there are all these other applications for it, like self-driving and things that are even pushing, boundaries in one's mind. But that's counterbalanced by the fact that, you may have even had your own experience with this as a listener, like you signed up for something that said it was AI laden, you got it, and it wasn't that great. Maybe it was like an extra frill or something like that, or there was
Sure.
a bunch of it. So I think the number one thing to know is there's a growing dichotomy between AI claims and AI reality. And I think that's especially true in PT right now. It's another technological wild west, where obviously everybody wants to go for the gold rush and claim their stake and saying, okay, we can do this, we have AI. And then there are some meaningful implementations of it that are making real changes, positive changes, and there's others that are just a veneer. And sometimes they're not even really AI, not to get technically detailed, but sometimes they're just like a riff on an older technology that kind of smells like AI. It's like using, I can't believe it's not butter instead of real butter. So it's not quite what you think. And here's the problem, though, is that these kind of faux things can cost you real money and real time. So that's where it becomes, it's not just fun and games. It's real money, it's real time, it's real people, it's real patients, it's real systems. So you do need to get increasingly more judicious about some of this stuff and like what you believe and what you can hold in your hands and what you can use and what you actually think will make a difference in your practice versus just sounds really cool on a drive-by advertisement. Marketing material.
Where is it legit? You mentioned, hey, it's pretty good at some things. So where
Yeah.
is it legit? Where does the hype match the output?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the two best things right now that AI can do, both broadly, but also specifically in our sort of neck of the woods, is helping document and summarize and write, or helping write. So that can come in a variety of forms, like documentation is obviously number one in this world, but marketing, job descriptions, like creating content. I always found, and maybe others did too, that starting a document was the hardest part. Remember when you'd open Word and you're just staring at that blank thing, and you're supposed to write something, but you're like, how do you even write? Then once you get going, it's not so bad. So that's really where, it's really where AI can help, right? Is like, just give me a few inputs. Like, I need to write Jimmy a letter. I need to tell him he's great, and I don't know where to start. Can you write this? And same with documentation. I have a patient. Here's a little bit about the presentation. Help me. Or do an ambient, record the thing and have it start it. And then it's really good at summarizing information. So if you have a large volume of data and you need to just give me 10 things I can read about. And I have to laugh when it's like, now it's summarizing chats with your friends. That seems a little ridiculous. Like, just read your chats with your friends. That's 5 or 6 things. But if you have like a chart of notes for a patient and you kind of want to distill that down into like a little narrative about that patient, it's really good at that kind of stuff. It's not good at, at like solving actual problems in some cases. I mean, I'm a patient at times, as many of us are, with different things. I don't really want Chat GPT to be my clinician. Maybe it can help give some pointers and some tips and things like that. It's not really good at really offloading 100% of your practice to. I think that's like the biggest claim. Like, don't worry, AI will do it. It's like, AI will do what? And who's going to look over it and make sure that it doesn't embarrass you or do something stupid that doesn't make any sense or hallucinate and just plain flatly out be wrong, which is absolutely possible. You have to remember that AI is really just pattern recognition on steroids. So it's like, it's learning what patterns are. It's the simple, like, 1, 3, 5. What's the next number? And you're like, oh, that's easy. It's 7. That's what AI is, but on a grand scale. So what I'm trying to get at here is, anybody who says it's not changing the world and it's not that important is wrong. Anybody who says, by, June, your food will be delivered by an AI robot and they'll be cleaning your house and all, that's also wrong. And again, PT practices really have to be tight with what they want to do and what they want to spend on in order to be successful.
Always and never, as we were taught in test taking. Hey, beware of always and never. Beware of everything or nothing. It's probably somewhere in the middle. And because it's a PT podcast, of course, I'm going to say it depends. What are the parts of PT that you'd think should not be automated? What would you put in the black box and go, no, don't touch it. I don't want this. You should not automate this. Or sorry, we should not put AI in there.
Yeah, well, I certainly think the clinical aspect needs a lot of, thinking and time. I mean, again, as a patient, as a human being, there is value to somebody who's gone through extensive education, right, to learn, and they're actually putting their hands on you and understanding what's happening with you and that sort of thing. And again, I think that can be augmented, but that's something. The second one I would urge caution with is so I wouldn't say there's something that at the moment I'm ready to say can never be touched by AI, but there are some things that should be very end or very cautious. And another one is your patient experience. I don't know if you enjoy talking to AI phone things or
Oh
AI
no.
chatbots. It's a mixed bag. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes it's like you're like I would say though, as a customer of things, like when I have a good experience with one, I'm kind of surprised. I'm like, actually, that's pretty good. You know, like it actually did what I want. Most of the time, though, I'm chatting with the damn thing because I already know I have an exception, and that's why I need to talk to somebody. And so, what you want to be careful with your patient experience is over automating it to death and realizing that you're really upsetting your patients. You know, these are your customers. This is your money, and you know, what will they do? Well, they could go to another practice. They could fall off their plan of care and kill off half your revenue stream from that patient. They can exercise their kind of power. So I see a lot out there about, you know, the phones will be gone, the front desk will be fully gone, nobody cares, you know, the AI bot will do everything and collect the money, and, you know, caution, you know, radar goes up and just says there are absolutely opportunities to make that stuff better and more streamlined and get rid of the scut work. There are some things that need, you know, and you're in healthcare, you're not Amazon delivering widgets. So you need to have some human compassion, I think, and empathy to mix in with that tech stack. And actually, if you do a good job with it, I think you can amplify some of those good things rather than thinking about it as a way to like get rid of those things or get rid of those costs.
You get to define the next terms for the next question: small versus large clinics, because you work with both, right? You work with a range of who works with.
Yeah.
So how do you think AI and automation change the economics of small clinics versus medium or large? Like, there are different problems if you are doing less than $1 million a year versus $20 million a year. And I know people are like, it's more complicated. I go, yes, you're on the up ramp. You're just in different parts of a life cycle. So which means economics, or the things that are important or hard, are different for these practices. So how do you think AI and automation actually change the economics of small versus large over the next couple of years?
Yeah, more money, more problems, I think is the good old adage there for sure. You know, oddly enough, I would say in a lot of ways that the problems aren't that different between smaller practices and larger, just in the sense that they're confronting the same issues. It's the scale, obviously, that matters. So like a small practice would say, you know, cancels and no-shows are a challenge for us. And a large practice might also say cancels and no-shows are a challenge for us. But the large practice needs to solve for 1,000 cancellations a month out of, you know, 10,000 visits. And the little one needs to solve for 50 out of 1,000 over the course of a month, something like that. And so how has it changed the economics? I mean, for sure, practice that is really effectively using technology can definitely punch a little bit out of its weight class. It can sort of emulate a larger practice with less resources. So that's kind of interesting. But the flip side to that is that any size practice that's doing a poor implementation or poor job of actually using the tools could actually be spending more money and possibly even be less efficient, just because they're not doing a good job with the actual tools they have. That, you know, you can see evidence of that at times, where they're trying to stretch too much and do too much, and then the outcome is actually lower output, more burnout, like just everybody's frazzled, and then it starts showing up in satisfaction, employee, patient, in money, and those sorts of things. So I do think there's some similarities. I do think you know, any practice can sort of make itself bulk itself up a little bit with the right technology and with the right utilization. I don't think you know. Yeah, it's a very interesting question. It's going to be it just plays into some much larger themes that I kind of have floating around my head, but I don't want to go too far afield. But you know, more money is flowing into the PT space, exits, and you know, conglomeration is all a conversation that, again, being in the space for a long time, wasn't a reality a few years ago, but certainly has entered in a large way if you go to any large scale PT events. I don't know, you could walk around with your AI and it can count how many times people say multiple. What's the multiple? What are we getting for a multiple? That's like a super cool word. And it, it's changed a lot. And so I think that's the bottom line is you can punch higher than your class, but only with a positive quality implementation of the tools.
Right now, who benefits the most? Who gets the most juice versus squeeze from adopting automation early? Is it struggling clinics, growing clinics, high-performing ones? Is it they all benefit differently? But who is like, hey, listen, automation can help this group the most at what?
Yeah, I guess my off-the-cuff answer is it's the middle of the bell curve that can most improve from this. The struggling ones, unfortunately, sometimes their struggles are not related to technology. It's a
They're
patient
different,
pipeline problem. It's a payer problem. It's a out of whack balance between admin staff and providers. Like something is structurally going on is often what I see. And, I really feel bad when I see those clinics because they will often start attributing it to other things. They bring in a new system, their problems are the same or worse, and they don't understand why. And it's because there's whatever structural issue they have. We have one PT who works part-time in a PTA and we don't understand why we're not making any hay. I mean, I can tell you why. There's no EMR you can buy that's going to change your dynamic or your economics on that. The high-end clinics, they're usually more dialed in. Not always. Sometimes they just have had awesome organic growth and they're just the benefactors of luck and they really haven't dialed things in. But many of them have dialed things in and their benefit primarily would be reduction or redirection of staff. So reduction, like literally they can offload things and have less people, or redirection, we can offload tasks and have Jimmy work on something more profitable or like some marketing effort we didn't previously have. And that can help them improve by 10%, let's say. But the middle one, the one that's like not failing and not blowing it out of the water, really has a lot to gain by saying like, you know what, like if we could see another 5 patients per week, if we could attract, a little bit more, if we could automate a few things and, we can keep our front desk, but they want to only work a half day on Friday and we get to keep a trusted employee, but we kind of give a little, get a little. They have a lot to gain from implementing AI, from implementing technology, again, meaningfully and measurably, because then they can go from being in the middle, they can avoid falling into that struggling category, or they can actually push into the lower end of that sort of high performing practice or beyond, over a period of time.
All right. You've been around since it was.
Did I surprise you with that answer, or was that what you expected? Okay,
no,
yeah,
no,
I don't know. I think people are always thinking like, aha, the high end clinics are always, the ones, the high performing, are they going to crush it with technology? And they certainly are leading. They are on the front end of the adoption curve, but for different reasons, I think at times.
Sure. I mean, listen, like look at it, and it doesn't always work when you make a parallel, but if you got a boat that's is sinking, a boat that's doing all right, and a boat that is, like one of those crew boats in the Olympics, you might improve that Olympic crew rowing scull 1%, and then that's the difference between gold or not. You're going to need, a bilge pump and a giant patch to get the one who's already mid-sinking, like, new paint job ain't going to fix it, right? But the middle, you might see the best ROI, the biggest change, because like, all right, you're not sinking. We can work on higher level problems. We're not in, as my dad, a firefighter, would say, what's the worst thing to do in a panic situation? And the answer was panic. Don't do that. And the second worst thing to do in a panic situation is nothing, right? So we should be doing something. We want to go faster. Look around. Is it scrape barnacles? Is it a paint job? Is it a bigger motor? Pick one of those things and run with it. You'll see a bigger ROI there.
100%. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So I'll make you look in the future.
Okay.
3-year vision. We always want, I feel like I always ask you unfair questions like, I need you to look in the future, right? But if we're sitting here 3 years from now, what will the best run PT clinics have been doing in 2026 if they're doing well in 2029, which feels like a fake number? 2026 feels like a fake year from a movie. But what will they have been doing operationally different in 2026 so that they are high performing in 2029?
Yeah, I think the very first answer I have to give is they'll be focusing in 2026. So, cutting through a whole bunch of nonsense, determining what are their profitability factors, and then drawing back from that what operational things need to change in order to do that. And yeah, I mean, listen, if we took 100 practices from all 50 different states, there'd be some absolutely common threads between them. We need more patients, we need to get rid of some payers that are low paying. I mean, all the stuff you hear about at the conferences and you hear speakers talk about ad nauseum. So in 2026, like, I don't know, as a tech person, you might think, well, you should say something like do an automated wait list or something like that. But the automated wait list that's the it's like the symptom versus the disease kind of analogy.
Yes.
Like, we need to understand what it is we're trying to do, and then we can back into how to get there, and hopefully not with band-aids, but with actual meaningful operational changes. And so they will be implementing new things. There's no question about that, but they will be implementing them in a measured way. So 2026 might be the year you pick 3 or 4 initiatives that are sort of tech-based, and you're like, all right, yeah, this is the year where we're going to implement online booking. We're going to do an automated wait list. We're going to jump into AI documentation, and those are our 3 things. And that's like 1 per quarter or something, or 2 per quarter, or something that's manageable. And it spans the teams. So like you'll have one that's for your clinical team, kind of a tech goal, one for your scheduling front desk operations team, billing team, all those sorts of things. And your goal is not going to be to change United Healthcare's payment fee schedule, at least not by itself. I think everybody wants that, and vendors harp on that constantly because they think that's a way for them to get paid more. It's like, oh, if we can convince you that you can convince United to pay you more, then you could pay us more too, and everybody will be happy. It's a good goal. There are advocacy groups that do that, but that's not a business strategy. That's like a long range kind of thing. So get focused, be reasonable, implement, actually do the damn thing, and then come out at the end and then say, okay, let's do this. And for AI, I know I've harped on this, but it does mean being very judicious. The decisions may be to pass on something, or it's just too nascent. It's just not there yet. It's just not worth your time to implement it, or the cost. That's the other crazy thing about AI is a lot of these, I think, nascent things are very expensive. And so it's kind of, like when we think about EMR, I mean, what is a reasonable spend for an EMR per provider per month?
Yeah, I mean,
that's a question that, we think we have an answer because obviously we're selling it. So we have to have product market fit, but there are very wide ranging answers amongst vendors. I mean, some people think it can be exponential. I'm not of that mind personally, but I think it needs to be and continue to stay reasonable. So you cannot triple your EMR spend this year per provider and think that that's going to like go well for you. You just can't do that. So that is something to be mindful of, especially if you make that spend and then you don't get any real meaningful benefit out of it.
Yeah.
So
I've talked about this before, and I feel like we haven't talked about it in a while. This is specific to you guys. You meet people who are nodding along with us on this episode or previous, and they go, all right, I'll take one step closer. When someone comes to you or another EMR, how do you walk them through like what the future looks like? Do you let them lead the conversation? Do you essentially just feature click through on a screen, or like, what's the best way? Because a lot of times they're like, I know I need something different. What do you need? I don't know. Like, so what's the best way for someone to do a sort of a self-assessment to go, okay, before I just go and book all these calls with these EMR people, what should I ask myself or be prepared? Because you could waste a whole hour and get no answers.
Absolutely. I always think tech starts with business. So you need the first introspective question is, what is happening with my practice? What is happening with my business? It could be that you're just annoyed with your current system because literally there are a few hangups that are driving you nuts, and that's just how it is. But most of the time, I think, these changes are precipitated by some kind of business case, like profit, revenue, patient acquisition, staff burnout, the usual ones that you hear. And there's a goal, and then there needs to be let's use the good old analogy of the patient. The practice is the patient. We need to figure out what the issue is. Then we need to go through a diagnosis phase where we're like, why is this happening? And really being reasonable about what your expectations are and why you're making a change. And by the way, you need to be able to articulate to your staff why you're making the change. So if you cannot articulate it to your staff, you will not be able to articulate it to a vendor. We are switching EMRs because, I don't know, because we just are. I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. Like it could go great. It could not go great. I suppose if you have no expectations, it could just, So what is the answer to that question? And a lot of times, yeah, it's very basic stuff like cost for my current EMR is growing out of control, or reliability is an issue, or support sucks. All those different things come up. But oftentimes it really needs to be accompanied by the business case behind why, and then you can articulate to your staff, then to the vendor, and then they can make the case for why they can solve those problems for you.
I like what you actually say and do say on your website, which is 30 minutes, no pressure, friendly people. Like when you go to book a call, because from a marketing guy, of course, I'm going to look through the same lens. You're a tech guy, EMR guy. I look at it as like, what do I have to give? 30 minutes. That's pretty reasonable. Is this, hey, come to Boca, you go to a timeshare and we'll give you free golf? Is there like strings? And you're like, no pressure. And then finally, it's like, is this going to be sort of a salesman that I got to like weasel my way out of the conversation? Like friendly people. It's like, we might not be right for you. This is the best sale, non-sale, which is like, I have no idea if I'm right for you. Maybe I am, but 30 minutes, right? No pressure, friendly people. Let's walk through this. And the answer might be no. I have take a wild guess. If you onboard or you sell, and I'm using air quotes in a podcast, if you sell someone who's not right for Empower, you probably lose money on that in the short term if they go and bail in 8 or 12 months.
It's not good for anybody. We just put it to you that
right.
way. It's not a win. That's artificial growth. Longevity is definitely a key metric for us, and wanting to have, and people stay because they're happy. And we have a very strong no jerks policy here, which I always encourage people to adopt. No jerks. Just don't hire any jerks. You'll
I have a similar policy. Life. It's not the word jerk though. It's a different word, which is like, no, that's rule 1. What's rule 2? See rule number 1. Don't be a jerk.
It works itself out, and jerks is a podcast-friendly term, so it seems to work well.
You can insert whatever you want there into what you think that is.
Yeah, but you need to. I just think you need to help people. That's really what it is, and I really empathize with practice owners. I know that they're it's crazy. Like they're crazy. They're doing a lot. They're trying to run the business. Obviously, people mostly only bring CEOs problems. That's the nature of being a CEO, is like you're the practice owner. 9 times out of 10, people are coming to you with a problem, right? They're not coming to you to be like, everything's going so great. This is the everything is okay alarm, and I'm ringing it. Everything is okay. They're coming to you because there's an HR issue, there's a pipe burst, you got an issue with a patient, like all sorts of things. So you want to help people, you want to help the helpers, and like help them figure out what they need to do in order to be doing well. And I think the PT space has changed so much. The business acumen has grown, which I think was so needed. There's so much time spent debating the DPT credential and whether that made, now I'm going back some years, but whether that made sense. Like, should we elevate from the masters? You probably remember some of those debates. But now I think the business side is having a bit of a catch up there. And I think, coaching is very popular now. That wasn't true 5 years ago. I mentioned the influence of private equity, which I think is both good and bad in different ways. Possibly more bad than good, but that's maybe another discussion all to its own. What's the goal here? And then just more people asking better questions and trying to get better answers. So like there's a lot of things changing. Yeah,
I'm seeing it. I mean, we're in 2026. I graduated in 2016, so there's a good 10-year snapshot. I'm seeing better questions from people where, there's no such thing as a bad question. Yes, there is. There are terrible questions, right? Right. We're supposed to say now, like, we want you to ask a question. The funny part is it's a bad question, but the thing at the bottom, the thing you're not asking, but you really want to know, that's the better question, right? That's what I mean by that. Like, how do I get paid to buy insurance? It's like, I don't know what business you're in yet, so we got to ask more questions. I'm seeing, and this could be biased, I'm seeing people with no business experience coming out of PT school asking better questions, because I think we're just talking about it more. So people might not have enrolled in an MBA. They're just like, I'm sort of gleaning stuff from X or LinkedIn and Facebook groups, and they're starting on second base where we used to start in the dugout.
Yeah, I agree. I also think the market has gotten more competitive on every front. You have to be better to survive. You just have to do better and be better, and that means you got to learn faster. And that means, like you said, starting at a better place if you can, or reading the book or whatever. And so I think all of that's true. I know that that's true in the EMR space. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of choices now in the space. It wasn't always that way. I can say that from direct experience, but today there are lots of companies out there, and everybody's got their shtick, and they're pushing out their stuff, and that's also causing people to ask more questions. And so I think on the whole, this trend is very good. Like, I think it's good for people to be asking better questions, do better, be better, run a better business, hopefully more survive, create more jobs. Like, there's all kinds of good things that come from that. What I don't want people to lose sight of is just that there are some fundamentals, that are somewhat immutable. Like, they just don't change. Like, you need to run a good business, you need to run a profitable business. Like, these things are always true. They just don't change, and how they get achieved may change over time, the methods. But you just got to respect kind of the laws of physics, and up is up and down is down, and that's just the way it is sometimes. So, and you don't need a very fancy business consultant to tell you that. You already know that. You know. So,
Sharif, you know what time it is. It's time for the parting shot.
This is the parting shot. One last mic drop moment. No pressure, just your legacy on the line.
All right, parting shot brought to you by Empower EMR. Of course, Sharif's here. Your clinic is stuck in an EMR that slows you down. I mean, to put it frankly, if it's slowing you down, like, you don't have to use that. This is your decision. You are, and I hate to do this, but you are empowered to make a choice. I said I would never do that, but I need to point out the obvious. The obvious is sometimes the best marketing. You are empowered to change that. It doesn't have to be with Sharif, but it might be. How do you know unless you go to a call? Empower, they like to say, it gives you speed, clean workflows, and features PTs actually asked for. Hard stop. I love the people in Facebook groups who are like, great, I can make my note blue. I don't need that. I need it to be better or easier, but thank you for letting me make the template blue. These are things people actually ask for. Better notes, faster documentation, smoother operations. Please pay attention to those matters. If you can wrap it up into customer support that also doesn't ghost you, that's terribly important. People look for that. We talked earlier. Do you like talking to AI on the phone? Yeah, when appropriate, when I can just do two things. And sometimes when I have a real problem, I want a human to sit down with me until it's solved. That's what you get. So you can do that. Upgrade your clinic's brain with Empower EMR. Maybe it's not right for you, but the one way to find out, you go to empoweremr.com, you click on a demo, and here's what you get. It's right on the website, so it must be true, right? 30 minutes, no pressure, friendly people. And in 29 and a half minutes, you're probably like, okay, this isn't right. That's okay. That's good. Or, hey, maybe this is. That's good. More decisions, right? Not a sales pitch, conversation. All right, I've talked a lot. Parting shot, one thing you want to leave with the audience as we wrap up today.
So the one parting thought is AI, cautiously. So, I would say I'm optimistic about the future. We're undertaking obviously lots of changes and additions to our product to meet, the growing demand and capabilities of AI. But cautious optimism, I think, is really what's needed, and that will put you on the right frame of mind, because it puts you in the frame of mind that progress is what you need, and moving forward is what you need, but you do it, cautiously, carefully, prudently, so you're not taking on things that don't work, costs that are unnecessary, or building up unnecessary burnout, or all the sort of collateral damage things that can happen with the wrong thing. So let's go forward. Let's be cautiously optimistic and keep working and see what's doing and what's not, and then adjust.
Trust, but verify.
There you go. That's a good one.
Politics. It was good. All right. Again, Sharif, appreciate this. This is part 2. We'll bring you back next time for part 3 in the series. But here's the thing. This isn't a 3-part series. This is something you should be paying attention and spending time asking yourself better questions. That's really what I get from conversations with you. You're not telling people what to think. You're essentially saying, this is maybe how you might want to think about, because you are a different practice, no matter what your specialty is or where you are in the growth cycle. So instead of what to think, how to think. Sharif, appreciate the time here in part 2 of the series.
Yeah. Thanks, Jimmy. Great to be here.
That's it for this one, but we're just getting warmed up. Smash follow, send it to a friend, or crank up the next episode. Want to go deeper? Hit us at ptpintcast.com or find us on YouTube and socials at PTPintcast. And legally, none of this was advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. See, Keith, we read the script. Happy now?